and welcome to On The Clock, brought to you in partnership with Under Armour. In the lead up to next month's NAB AFL Draft, we'll be here to answer all of the big questions. And to do that, I'm joined by Matthew, Lloyd and Cal Twomey. Welcome, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Riley. Apart from the Tigers, I suppose, who are still rejoicing. This is like party time, Christmas Eve for most people, most teams who haven't made the grand final.
Trade period we love, but I love the draft the most. Yeah. I'm looking forward to talking about the repercussions of trade period and what that means for the draft going forward.
Well, Cal, there's a lot of pressure on a lot of clubs going into November's NAB AFL Draft. Which club do you feel is most in need to nail the draft?
It has to be Fremantle. It has to be, because they're in a position now where they can really bolster their list. They're going to end up with 2 top 10 picks once Bradley Hill moves. They get the pick from St Kilda, pick 6, and then pick 7, their own selection. So they have to nail those selections. I don't get excited when I look at their list, Lloydie. I don't see the guys that you see at other clubs and you get really excited about the future. So they can go really hard at this year's draft. They can pick up 2 WA talents maybe, Luke Jackson, the ruckman, maybe it's Devon Robinson, maybe it's the Gippsland pair, Sam Flanders and Caleb Sarong, because they've also got another first rounder in their midst, and that's Liam Henry, a player from the Next Generation Academy. He's the next Michael Walters. They get first dibs on him. They could end this draft with 3 top 20 picks, and that can set him up for the future, the Dockers, because look at what he can do. He's skillful. He's an Indigenous forward from WA, and they get first call on him. I think a bid comes for him around the top 20 mark. He's a dazzling sort of type who can play across half forward. He's the guy.
Cal obviously hasn't heard of Nathan Fyfe and Michael Walters that excite people.
No, they're exciting, but not youth. I'm looking for youth. And Adam Chera, I've got some doubts on whether he stays long term. Andrew Brayshaw's a good player, but I don't go to pay money to watch Andrew Brayshaw.
Well, I'll go with Geelong because I believe that their depth hurts them pretty much every final series. They finish on top of the ladder because I think their ground gets them there, GMHBA Stadium, but at the end of the day, they lack depth, apart from Brian Myers and also Jordan Clark. I don't think they have much youth on their list whatsoever that gets me excited, Cal. So I think with Tim Kelly leaving and with 3 picks inside 25, they must nail this draft while they've still got Danger, Selwood, Hawkins at the top of their game.
They just made a prelim.
Yeah, but they get their pants pulled down in big finals every year.
They certainly need a bit more depth. Well, Lloydie, Matt Rowell and Noah Anderson, we know they're going to be the top 2 picks at next month's draft, sorry. But in 5 years' time, who do you think is going to be better?
Every day of the week, Matthew Rowell is going to be better because he's a big game player. Every big game he plays in, he's the best man on the ground. They lost the TAC Grand Final, the NAB League Grand Final last year. He's still best on ground. This year's NAB League, he's best on ground. He's as clean at stoppages as anyone I've seen since Tom Mitchell of the Sydney Swans and now at the Hawthorn Football Club, the Brownlow medalist. So he's tough, he's uncompromising. He's the man I would want in my team every day of the week for the next 15 years.
Yeah, good call. He's a pretty good player. I'll give you that. He's going to go number 1. I know that. But I'm a Noah Anderson fan. I'm a big rap for what he can do. And his goal kicking is what I like. And his size as well. He's 12 centimetres taller than Matty Rowell, so he can go forward. He can take a grab. Look at Rowell's stats in the NAB League this season. Rowell kicked 3 goals in 7 games. Noah averaged 2 goals a game and 28 touches. So he's doing it all.
Who fed him those balls, though?
Yeah, a fair few of them would have come from Matty Rowell. But look, I think you have to make what you get. And also, I'll give you a question. Andrew McGrath versus Tim Taranto. Now, who would you take?
I'd take Taranto, but that's different.
No, this is what we're talking about, though. The size, different sort of shape and size players. I think Taranto is the Nat Fyfe and also the Noah Anderson.
All right. Well, the draft combine has just finished last week. Lloydie, which player do you feel boosted his stocks the most throughout the combine?
It's a boy I've actually coached against by the name of Finn McGuinness. He dominated actually pretty much the testing. Listen to some of these times. Second in the 2K, an unbelievable 5 minutes and 51 seconds. That is just unbelievable. We watched him in the sprint. Some doubted his speed. He was top 6 for speed, 2.9. The yo-yo, he just runs all day. And talk about big bodies. He's just going to be a beast at AFL level around the stoppages. And we see his heart that he's got to run coming second. So, no doubt, top 20 now, possibly for Hawks, father-son.
What I love about him as well and his performances, but the Hawks have not guaranteed him anything. So people are saying, Finn, slow down, you're going to cost us too much at the Hawks. But he's still got a point to prove. The guy for me at the combine was Cooper Stevens. So he's a guy who we haven't seen play since April because of a broken leg. Weren't sure if he was going to test at the combine, but thankfully he did, because he's pushed himself up to top 20 contention because he's an 188 centimetre midfield bull. He won the yo-yo test, as we see now. He drew that one at the top of the ranks there with a time of 21.8, reaching that level. So he's a gun midfielder, a contested beast, and I think he's someone who can push himself into first-round contention because of his combine.
Really looking forward to seeing where those two go. Cal, we've spoken a lot about the players at the high end of the draft. Who do you feel is the biggest risk-reward player in the draft?
I'm a big Brodie Kemp fan, and now the risk here is that he's done his ACL. So you look at guys who have done their ACL in recent years in their draft season and whether they've dropped because of that. Max King didn't really fall too far.
Yep.
Jake Lever pushed back about 10 spots maybe than what he would have. Ryan Burton, a serious leg injury. But Brodie Kemp can do it all. We see here the match-winning goal down there at Geelong earlier in the carnival. Before he did that knee injury, he can play in the midfield. He's a key defender as well. He can go forward. He's 192 centimetres, so we like the fact he's got that versatility. I'm just really interested to see where he goes because he's coming off a knee reconstruction. He won't play much footy at all next year, so that's something clubs will be weighing up.
And yeah, for me, Hugo Ralphsmith, he's a boy from the Sandringham Dragons and someone that I've coached at junior football at Haileybury College, and he tears people in terms of, they're not unsure about him because they think he may lack a bit of competitiveness. I look at his athleticism, his speed, his power, his ability to go to full forward and take marks on the lead, his ability to go through the midfield, and he runs like Isaac Smith, so he'll run for you all day long. So the risk is that his competitiveness.
Yep.
The reward is that you can get a guy that could be anything at AFL level.
We've spoken already about Noah Anderson. His dad, Dean, played 83 games for the Hawks, 67 for the Saints. Leads to this question, Lloyd. Should the father-son criteria be dropped to under 50 games, do you think?
I think it has to. I think the romance and a lot of the tradition in our game is gone. And I think this is something that's as good as we've got. Think of Gary Ablett playing for another team. Think of Jack Silvani playing for another team. Think of Dustin Fletcher playing for another team. And even Dacos. He's not of that ilk. But I love that he's playing for Collingwood.
What about thinking of Matty Lloyd playing for a different team? Because the rules did change just before you got to Essendon.
They did, and I had my heart set on playing for Carlton, where my dad played. Didn't work. It worked out for me, but I want my son to be playing for the Essendon Football Club. Yep. So I think the romance of that is magnificent.
I like the romance of it. I think keep it at 100 games. I think the draft is as compromised as we've ever seen it with the next generation academies.
Get rid of that then.
I'm all for making that harder to get those players because next year's draft is going to be the most compromised draft in history. There's already players tied to clubs left, right and centre. I think if you lower the qualification for father-son, there's going to be even more. So I'm at 100.
Speaking of compromised draft, Gold Coast has picks 1 and 2 courtesy of the compensation picks that they got from the AFL. Should they be scrapped, Cal?
No. You have to keep compensation picks because clubs like Gold Coast can't lose Tom Lynch for nothing. They have to get a compensation pick for him. In the end, they got Isaac Rankin for him. We haven't seen him at senior level, but trust me, he's a star, he's a gun, and he'll prove to be a long-term player for the Suns. So they needed to get something for him, Lloydie.
Yeah, I'm just sick of the herbs and spices that we don't know of. Brandon Ellis, Richmond aren't happy, but let's have a system where we know what they're getting paid, we know how many years they've been given, we know their age, and that falls into a category like the tribunal does. Yep. So there's no hidden agendas, and we know exactly what a player's worth.
So, do you think they should be held?
Yeah, they've got to keep them. And I've got an idea as well that the clubs that have finished in the top 4 have to give up or forfeit a selection at the draft if they go and pick up a top-rung player. So Richmond, for instance, gets Tom Lynch on the back of a top 4 season. Maybe they have to lose their first-round pick and it just disappears and the whole draft moves up a spot because of that transaction.
I disagree with that because I think why should you be disadvantaged because you're a great club, you're a well-run club. Brendan Gale, Peggy O'Neill, Damien Harvey, they've worked hard for that. They shouldn't be...
Free agency wasn't brought in for the best club to take the best player out of the worst club.
Get their act together and they won't lose players.
Could argue about this all night. Thank you guys for your time tonight and thank you for joining us. We'll be back soon with another episode of On the Clock and we'll see you then.